In the news tonight, the British Parliament approves airstrikes against Daesh in Iraq, joining a US-led coalition against a terrorist group that is tightening its siege of a town on the Syrian-Turkish border. Ukraine and Russia move closer to a deal that would guarantee Kiev at least 5 billion cubic meters of gas for the next 6 months if Ukraine made prepayments. And celebrities gather in Venice for George Clooney's wedding to Amal Alamuddin tomorrow. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Affairs Nasser Joudeh stressed on the need for a concerted international effort to support the unity, sovereignty and political independence of Libya. In remarks during his participation in a ministerial meeting on the sidelines of the 69th session of the UN General Assembly in New York, Joudeh urged the international community to support legitimate constitutional institutions in Libya represented in the parliament and the government. He also called on all Libyan parties to place national interests above all other consideration, reject violence and support the political process in the country. Separately, Joudeh took part in a meeting of the Deauville Partnership member countries. He reiterated Jordan's commitment to this partnership, which is key to its reform process. The Deauville Partnership was launched in 2011 during the meetings of the G8 summit in Deauville, France, as a response to the political changes in Arab countries. It seeks to support countries in the Arab world engage in transitions towards free, democratic, and tolerant societies. The Civil Defense Department, CCD, announced it is installing a system of outdoor sirens at a number of locations in the capital, Amman. The siren system, which will be installed in other governorates at a later phase, will broadcast advisory messages to citizens, particularly in emergencies and severe weather conditions. The department said installing the sirens comes in line with upgrading its strategic plan to provide citizens with better awareness services. In an interview with Jordan Television, CCD spokesman Brigadier General Farid Shara dismissed as baseless fears voiced by several social media users that the installation of siren systems in the capital is related to Jordan's current participation in US-led airstrikes against Daesh terrorist group. He added that the project is part of a CCD strategy to develop services offered to citizens.
There are people who claim that the sirens are related to war, especially after His Majesty the King took a bold decision to wage a war against terrorism. So most people believe this is linked to the decision to go to war. This is totally not true. This project was planned a long time ago and is being implemented now. The duties of Civil Defense Department continue, whether in peace or wartime. However, if there are any terrorist or security threats, these sirens will be used to convey information.
US-led forces continued to hit Daesh bases in eastern Syria. The US-led strikes hit bases and positions on the outskirts of the city of Al-Mayadeen in Deir ez-Zor province. The strikes also hit the Al-Tanak oil field in the Deir ez-Zor province, as well as areas southeast of the city of Hasaka, close to Syria's border with Iraq. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, said airstrikes overnight and early today had destroyed more than a dozen Daesh vehicles in both Syria and southwest of Kirkuk in Iraq. Meanwhile, the U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, said a Western-backed opposition force of around 12,000 to 15,000 would be required to retake areas of eastern Syria now controlled by Daesh. And after weeks of weighing its options, Britain's parliament voted overwhelmingly to approve airstrikes against Daesh terrorists in Iraq. The vote by 524 to 43 paves the way for the Royal Air Force to join US-led military action with immediate effect. 6 Cyprus-based Tornado GR-4 fighter bombers are on standby to take part in initial strikes after British Prime Minister David Cameron recalled Parliament from recess to back military action following an official request from the Iraqi government. Denmark today also announced that it would send planes to join the US-led campaign, and Belgian lawmakers also voted to send 6 fighter jets to join the US-led coalition targeting Daesh terrorists in Iraq. The terrorist group tightened their siege of a strategic town on Syria's border with Turkey, pushing Kurdish forces and sending at least 2 shells into Turkish territory. Kurdish fighters exchanged artillery and machine gun fire with terrorists from Daesh in a cluster of villages west of the town of Kobani on the northern Syrian border with Turkey. Daesh launched its assault on Kobani more than a week ago, besieging it from 3 sides. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the terrorist group had also taken control of a village around 7 kilometers to the east of Kobani. The sound of artillery and machine gun fire echoed across the border, and at least 2 shells hit a vineyard on the Turkish side. Meanwhile, the number of Syrians fleeing the violence in Kobani and surrounding villages into Turkey has topped 160,000. Turkey is already sheltering more than 1.3 million refugees and struggling to cope with the influx. The United Nations Refugee Agency said the first of 8 planned aid flights landed in the southern Turkish city of Adana, carrying prefabricated warehouses, sleeping mats, and cooking utensils to help Turkey. The UN Refugee Agency, however, warned that the entire 400,000 population of Kobani could flee. UNHCR's Turkey representative, during a visit to the Turkish-Syrian border post, made an appeal to the international community to boost support to Turkey and other neighboring countries hosting Syrian refugees.
You know, this is an investment in our collective future. This isn't just about helping a person or 2. This is a country where half of the population is no longer living in their home. Many of the children are not getting an education. Those who were about to start school have just fled.
A Cairo criminal court will decide tomorrow the destiny of former President Hosni Mubarak, his sons Ala and Jamal, former Interior Minister Habib al-Adli, and 6 of Mubarak's close aides. Mubarak, al-Adli, and the 6 aides are accused of being behind the killing and injuring of peaceful protesters who took to the streets during the revolution in 2011 to demand social, political, and economic reforms. They also face corruption charges. 86-year-old Mubarak, however, is unlikely to be sentenced to death. But whatever the ruling is, prosecutors and defense lawyers have the right to appeal it, and if the appeal is accepted, the Court of Cassation will hear the case and deliver the final ruling. The European Union moved closer to brokering a deal between Ukraine and Russia that would supply Kiev at least 5 billion cubic meters of gas to help prevent a winter shortfall. Under the deal, Kiev would pay $2 billion by the end of October and a further $1.1 billion by the end of the year, with the International Monetary Fund putting up guarantees. The Ukrainian energy minister said after the talks there was no agreement with Russia yet over the price and that differences remained over the payment of old debts. However, he added that Ukraine was prepared to compromise and expected open questions over the proposed deal to be settled by next week. European winter natural gas price benchmarks dropped over 1.5% this afternoon as the deal between the EU, Russia and Ukraine appeared closer. Russia cut off gas supplies to Ukraine in June because of a row over Ukraine's unpaid gas bill. Operation Wedding is in full swing for Hollywood's favorite bachelor, George Clooney, and his British-Lebanese fiancée, Amal Alamuddin, with guests arriving and decorations going up in Venice ahead of their wedding tomorrow. Clooney was spotted on a water taxi with his bride-to-be as they were traveling with a group of friends on board the boat. More than 150 guests, including A-listers such as Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, Matt Damon, Cindy Crawford, are among those expected to descend upon the lagoon city for the wedding. Clooney has reserved the 7-star Amman Canal Grande Hotel in the Palazzo Papadopoli on Venice's Grand Canal, where the exchange of vows ceremony and wedding reception will take place. And to Paris and Fashion Week, Japanese fashion brand Issey Miyake showed a ready-to-wear Spring-Summer 2015 collection based on the interaction between wind and the landscape. The theme of this collection is windscape. Models wore simple white forms, forming the blank canvas upon which colors, patterns, and textures were later built up. White gave way to pastel blue, pink, and lilac, then bright yellow and orange before a finale of bold, multicolored checks. At the heart of Miyake's collection was an innovative new fabric formed by a technique known as 3D steam stretch. Paris Fashion Week continues until October 1st. Barcelona have a busy week ahead involving matches against Granada and Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. Though Barca won their first 4 games in the Spanish league, they failed to make an impression against Malaga as Wednesday's game ended with a goalless draw. Barca are level with Sevilla and Valencia on 13 points, with Valencia having played a game more and will seek to make the gap bigger over traditional rival Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid tomorrow when they play Granada. Real face Villarreal while Atletico host Sevilla. Barca will also travel to play PSG next week in the Champions League Group F match. 111 base jumpers from 19 countries gathered in Malaysia to take part in the 14th Kuala Lumpur Tower International Jump. They will jump from the 300 meters high Kuala Lumpur Tower, the world's 7th tallest communication tower. After jumping off, they have to somersault in the air, in which they have to open their parachutes in no more than 6 seconds. Base jumping is more dangerous than skydiving, as limited height makes it difficult to grasp the right timing to open the parachute.
1.5, 1 backflip. Yeah.
And finally, for a quick look at the weather, fair and partly cloudy weather continues tonight with northerly moderate to brisk winds. As for tomorrow, a slight rise in temperature is expected, creating relatively warm conditions in most parts of the country. Further south, the Gulf of Aqaba can expect hot weather, while winds will be northerly moderate to brisk and the seas calm. Here now to look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. The British Parliament approves airstrikes against Daesh in Iraq, joining a US-led coalition against a terrorist group that is tightening its siege of a town on the Syrian-Turkish border. Ukraine and Russia move closer to a deal that would guarantee Kyiv at least 5 billion cubic meters of gas for the next 6 months if Ukraine made prepayments. And celebrities gather in Venice for George Clooney's wedding to Amal Alamuddin tomorrow. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Z.Toukan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.